What's up, you guys? Wanted to talk real quick about some of the problems that I've seen repeatedly over many years of me evaluating FedEx routes. And what that problem is whenever people are building their acquisition team, whenever they want to take over a FedEx route business. Now, a lot of times people think about management as whether they are a good manager. Am I a nice person? Am I respectful? Am I easy to get along with? That's fine. You got this other part where they think, am I hiring the best? Is this CPA really good? Or are they really cheap and they're gonna forget things? Like, that's not really where we see the problem. The place where I see the problem in this whole process is that they are using the wrong professional for the wrong job. So we're gonna go through all those and talk about the things that I see them do and maybe the things that you should probably use these guys for. So number one is a lawyer. A lot of times people will have a lawyer, they'll bring them in to look over the huge FedEx contract, look over what line by line, page by page, and see if it seems like a good contract. The problem is that you can't really change that contract very easily or basically at all. And so a lot of times these lawyers will rack up huge bills and look through this thing, and it really doesn't matter so much because A, it's not going to change. B, it's only going to expire in a year or two. So some of that value of their analysis may be a little bit on the marginal end if the contract's going to end so quickly. So that's one thing. The way I would actually use a lawyer correctly is if I'm looking at a for sale by owner, maybe the route owner doesn't want to use a broker for whatever reason, and he is basically doing it himself, and he is creating his own purchase agreement. I want a lawyer to look at that thing, right? And so whenever we see these contracts that are basically through two individuals, not like the individual and FedEx, yeah, you definitely want to get a lawyer. That's going to be extremely valuable, and it should be reasonably inexpensive because typically it's only about a page or two. A lot of brokers already have purchase agreements that lawyers have looked over. They have used those things dozens and dozens of times. So one of the cool things about going through a broker is that you don't really have to worry about that so much. Like, I definitely would still have a lawyer take a look at the contract that you're about to sign, because some of the purchase agreements with some of the brokers are kind of ridiculous. You got to be able to have a lawyer take a look at that stuff. So that's an excellent use of their time. So second thing is a CPA. Sometimes people want to use a CPA to do their due diligence and financial evaluation. That doesn't work. And it doesn't work because a lot of the contractors in this business exaggerate and twist their tax returns around so much. It's just basically like a web of lies. Like nothing. It's not like just an exaggeration. It's just like straight up not true, right? And so the CPA is looking at this stuff and they're looking at the tax returns. They're analyzing and they're like, gosh, I don't know. Did he really spend this amount on a star 4 scanner? And they're like, wait a minute. What the hell's a star 4 scanner? Like, if you don't know this business, if you don't know what these expenses were and how much they should cost and whatnot, like, it's going to get really messy really quickly. Is this a reasonable amount of fuel? I don't know. How much does a box truck get in terms of miles per gallon or whatever? They could try to research these things. This is not what they're going to actually do. And again, even if they could, it's going to be very messy in terms of whether you can get very good data and documentation out of that tax return. It's very difficult. Now, I wouldn't use them for evaluation, but I definitely would use them for getting my taxes filed, getting my Schedule K generated, making sure I'm doing the correct filings when I'm supposed to file them. Because it's not like whenever you set up a corporation, you just file your tax returns once a year and you're done. Like, no, sometimes it's monthly, sometimes it's quarterly. You got lots of different stuff that you have to file. CPAs are excellent at helping you avoid those penalties, avoid screwing up, and getting your taxes done correctly. I would use them for taxes. I would not use them for due diligence and evaluation. The next is a mechanic. Sometimes people will use mechanics to try to tell them the future. Hey, mechanic, will this hose crack and snap in another couple of months? He doesn't know, and we shouldn't expect him to know what the future is either. Granted, mechanics can make some very good guesses, but a lot of times whenever we see people spending money on inspections on vehicles and whatnot before taking over, it's very difficult to know when and how those things are going to break, how much it's going to cost. We don't expect them to do that. What we do want our mechanic to do is to fix things. When things break and when we can prevent things from breaking, that's when we want to use it. We don't want to use them to try to tell us the future. So that's the mechanic. The next thing is random forums. A lot of times people will go to forums and they'll say, oh, you know, I need to know if FedEx routes are good. Are they good? Should I do it? I don't know. And they use random people as their trusted advisors. And these people in the forums, even though they're trying to help and doing the best they possibly can, They don't know your skill sets. They don't know your working capital. They don't know your risk tolerance. They don't know what your day-to-day life is in terms of how much time and energy you can devote to this business. So what they have to share is their own personal experience. And whenever you're dealing with that, it's going to vary dramatically. And a lot of times, whenever it's people sharing their personal experience and they're trolling around in the forums, it's generally, not always, but generally the people that aren't happy with it. Was it their fault? Maybe, maybe not. And that's important. It's not their fault a lot of times either. And so the things that they say can be very, very convincing. Like, hey, this is a problem with the business model itself. It's not just this guy mismanaging things. That's true. But you have to see all of the situations that go on there. Otherwise, you're going to get a very, very distorted image because it's only based off of one person, and I would not be using forums to do that. And so forums can have their value, but trying to have them tell you and act as an advisor is not the best way to use a forum. So the next thing is the manager in place. A lot of times people will look at the manager in place that's going to transfer with the business as some sort of omnipotent God of some sort. Like he's going to tell me when I should fire people. He's going to tell me when I need to do this or that. And he's going to fire everything. Everything's just going to be hands off. There's a manager in place. Well, let's say something breaks down in the middle of the day and the manager calls you up and he says, hey boss, one of your trucks blew up today and I'm talking here to the mechanic. He says it's going to be $20,000 to get this thing fixed. Want me to go out and get this thing fixed? And it's like, wait a minute. No, maybe, I don't know. Like you really need to spend some time to understand these trucks, understand the art of fleet management and all those sorts of things, and not just use a manager to try to be the end all of all of your management and operation decisions. You still have to spend some time on that. You do want the manager to take the knowledge that you have and push it out to the team to where all the drivers are trained correctly. They're not doing stupid stuff. They're not cutting corners that sometimes gets taught by some of these managers and whatnot. You have to make sure that things are good. That's why you would use a manager, but you do not want to use a manager to say, oh, well, I don't have to do anything. It's effortless. There's a manager in place. Don't do that. And so the last thing is brokers. People want to use brokers to evaluate the business for them and talk about how to operate it. They'll say, well, Mr. Broker, Mr. Seller, can I get 1,000,000 miles out of these trucks? When do I have to replace these trucks? And he's going to say, oh, you never do. Just drop a new engine in and you're good to go. And if that worked, like we'd all be driving around in 1982 box trucks with just brand new engines over and over. Like that doesn't work, right? So you don't want to use a broker to try to help you evaluate the business. What you do want to use a broker for is helping you get to the finish line. Hey, can I make an offer through this broker to where he can insulate it? Like, I don't want the seller to get offended or whatever. The broker is going to be able to do that. Because whenever you say, hey, I want to offer like $150,000 less, the broker says, you know what? I think this guy's pretty motivated. I think he'll do it. Let's get that on an LOI and move forward with this. Okay, great. The broker's going to help you go through that approval process and help work with that seller to be able to make it to the finish line. And they are extremely valuable for that. They are extremely valuable for selling and marketing the business for the seller, dealing with all the tire kickers, and lots more stuff beyond that. But I would not use a broker on the buyer side to try to help me evaluate this business. And so a lot of times I see it over and over, people using all of these individuals, but they're using them all for the wrong reasons. And so hopefully this should help you see when and why you should use each of these professionals: your CPAs, your mechanics, your lawyers, your manager in place, the forums that you've been reading online, and most importantly, the broker. So anyway, hopefully this helps out a whole bunch. So if you got any questions or comments, drop them below, hit the like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.